Hey, happy Friday. This week we have new folding phones from OPPO, the chip wars heated up to some pretty unhealthy levels, and the EU started forcing Apple to open up its walled gardens. Welcome to the Friday Checkout. This video was sponsored by Hover. Okay, the brief this week starts with the Xiaomi 13 series, which was launched in China featuring the new Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 and the same Leica camera from the 12S Ultra in the 13 Pro again. The whole series is set to launch globally as well in just a few months. Then the first Android 13 beta just came out for the Nothing phone, and to explain why Nothing is so late to the party, the company's CEO Carl Pei went on a press tour this week telling funny stories about how hard it is to hire people. That's a somewhat workable excuse, I guess. Now, something different this week was Microsoft buying a fiber optic cable company called Luminicity, which has hollow cores in its cables that carry laser light using air versus the transmission via silica glass in cables that we use today. Light apparently travels 47% faster in air than in glass, according to Luminicity, so that's pretty massive for latency if it really works. Nice. Next up, free speech absolutist Elon Musk once again decided that he only likes free speech as long as it's not talking about him, when Twitter suspended the account that tracked Elon Musk's private jet this week. Very cool. And finally, Samsung was reported to be creating a new independent team for designing its Exynos chips instead of using the Samsung LSI team that previously designed Exynos chips together with some 900 other products, including image sensors, modems, drivers, and more for both Samsung and others. This new dedicated Exynos chip unit is apparently going to be part of Samsung's smartphone division and should therefore be better able to focus on catching up on the high end if everything goes well. And that's a big if, of course. Okay, that's it for the brief, and my first story of the week is going to be all the new stuff coming out of OPPO's InnoDay event, starting with their brand new foldable smartphones. There are two models this year called the Find N2 and the Find N2 Flip. The Find N2 now comes with better and brighter screens than its predecessor. It is thinner and down to just 233 grams, which is about the weight of a normal big phone, which is great. And it comes with the second generation of OPPO's Flexion hinge that results in a smaller display crease. The Find N2 would be really good competition for Samsung's Galaxy Fold 4, but no word on a global release yet, and in China this device starts at about $1,150. What is apparently going global though is the Find N2 Flip, a new clamshell-style foldable which most importantly has this gigantic vertically oriented outer screen that looks really nice, together with a big 4300 mAh battery and flagship specs. Sounds super intriguing, and the base model starts at just $860 in China as well, with a full launch apparently happening sometime next year. I'd love to try out either of these devices, and I've actually asked for review units, but it's really difficult to get them here, especially in Germany, because OPPO is still completely banned, so maybe not. Other than that, OPPO's InnoDay this year also unveiled a few more bits. One of those was OPPO's second piece of custom silicon called the Mary Silicon Y, which is a Bluetooth audio SoC which claims to have higher quality audio through higher bit rates, and it's really interesting that the company is slowly designing more and more of its chips in-house. Another product of interest was the next generation OPPO Air Glass 2, its latest assisted reality glasses, where the big selling point is supposedly that they have the world's first resin sRG diffractive waveguide lengths, whatever that might mean, while still remaining light and relatively compact. And finally, OPPO also launched the O Health brand, signaling that they want to take the health category more seriously, and their first product is the O Health H1 Family Health Monitor, a concept device that you simply hold your finger on for measurement. It can track 6 health points across family in one device, including measurements of blood oxygen, ECG, heart rate, and more. Yeah, that health product seems like a bit of a weirdo, but I'm really excited about the foldables, and OPPO making more silicon is interesting as well. Okay, my second story of the week is going to be the chip wars getting more and more brutal, with 5-6 new headlines coming out just this week about the US increasingly cutting China off from more and more of its chip suppliers. Just look at the headlines this week. Japan and the Netherlands agreed to join the US in tightening controls over the export of advanced chip-making machinery to China, meaning a near-total blockade of China's ability to buy the necessary equipment to make both leading-edge chips and even older nodes. Then, the US is to add China's most important memory chip maker, YMTC, to trade blacklists as early as this week, throwing that company into a difficult place too. Then, the US got concerned even over China building up its capacities for making older chips, which means that even the ancient 28nm technologies might be pressured soon too. And on the other hand, China tried to push back on US chip sanctions by launching a WTO case and by readying a $143 billion package for chip firms to fund its domestic companies further, while we also saw that a Chinese chip company that stole IP from ASML recently raised $140 million. And that's just from this week. I mean, any of these stories on their own would be a huge deal, but apparently the US is gearing up to make sure that China just doesn't have access to any advanced chip manufacturing tech at all. That's kind of unprecedented. Okay, and my third story of the week is going to be Apple planning to open up its walled garden in the EU in the most amazing kind of U-turn ever. Reports via Bloomberg claim that Apple is preparing for the following changes. iOS and iPadOS will allow alternative app stores and sideloading, while the company also plans to open up the NFC system and the camera system of their iPhones and iPads and the Find My network for rivals of the AirTag and a whole lot more. What is happening is that Apple is preparing to comply with the new European law called the Digital Markets Act that takes effect on the 2nd of May next year, with companies having until 2024 to comply. I've talked about this law on my channel in the past as being focused on big companies like Apple, called gatekeepers, which under the new law will need to allow third parties to use their services. The current reports are about Apple, but others like Google, Microsoft, Meta, and Amazon will also be gatekeepers, which means that they will be forced to open up as well. And we might see similar effects on Google's ecosystem, as well as Meta being forced to open up WhatsApp, and a whole lot more. In that last video, I said that this legislation is just pretty wild. I mean, it fundamentally changes how the entire tech landscape works if it really passes. And the rumors are that the cat's out of the bag. At least Apple is preparing to comply. So yeah, gonna get interesting. What will be fascinating to watch is whether Apple will actually fully support things like sideloading as soon as iOS 17 as is reported, or whether they will come up with some creative roadblocks like they and Google as well have done with their rulings in the past. And the question is also whether these companies having to open up their systems in the EU will also mean that they will eventually have to do the same in the rest of the world too. I'd actually weirdly be a lot more interested in an iPhone and the Apple ecosystem in general if things were forced to be more open, so that's just my 2 cents, but I guess the EU regulators must be feeling pretty smug right about now if this really does go through. Now, depending on where you stand on this issue, you might want to express your support either for or against what the EU is doing. And if you are a real baller, you might want to do that with a custom domain. Like, for example, stoptheapple.tax or leaveapplealone.eu or anything else that you can come up with using the over 400 top-level domains that are available on Hover that include all your usual .coms to even city domains like .barcelona or .berlin and fun ones like .beer and .bike. You can use Hover to launch a whole website or just to set up a custom email for yourself or for your family or business. It's a super easy and fast process, and beside that, they have award-winning customer support too. Get 10% off your next domain using hover.com/TFC that is linked down in the description as well. Make your next website or email shine, and I'll see you next Friday.